Is it time for your church to get into virtual reality? In this video, I'm going to talk about why you should consider getting into virtual reality, when you should get into virtual reality, and what I believe churches are going to do in virtual reality. So get into the video, let's talk about it, and share your opinions in the comments afterwards. I want to know what you think. Okay, so a lot of people ask me, is it time for our church to invest in the metaverse? Is it time for us to be thinking about virtual reality? And the answer is probably not. There is not a critical mass in yet. There's not a good reason to begin to go all in virtual reality, but I do believe, and this is one of the things I've been wrong about, is I first experimented with virtual reality about 10 years ago, and I thought, oh, this is gonna get here quick and we're all going to have VR headsets soon, and it just didn't happen. They haven't reached mass adoption yet, and they're primarily used for gaming at this point, but I do believe it's still coming. When I look at the investment the tech companies are doing with Apple Vision Pro, with Meta, everything, with their headsets, the Quest headsets, and the different things that they're investing into with augmented reality and virtual reality, it is coming. And I think we don't know exactly when, and it's still probably 5 or 10 years away from reaching mass adoption, but I do believe it's coming, and I do believe it's something we need to be thinking about where this might go and how we can prepare for a future in virtual reality. And it doesn't mean that we're doing away with incarnational, in-person church. It means that as we've engaged people on their phones and on their computers and through their televisions, that we're augmenting what we do in our in-person churches with virtual reality technology. And it's a great tool to engage and connect people in between Sundays, and maybe just to engage people that you couldn't otherwise reach. So here are the top 3 ways that I think churches are going to use virtual reality and how I think we can begin thinking about it and preparing for that in the future. So the first way I think churches are going to use virtual reality in the future is VR, virtual reality worship services. So streaming in 360 videos. So it means you basically put a camera that has cameras, on all directions. So when it records, if you're in a virtual reality headset, you can look to the left. It is if you're in the worship environment. It can actually do this in a 3D environment. So it feels for the person that's watching in the VR headset like they're there in your worship environment. And so I think about people that are home or sick, worshiping with you. It's one thing to watch it on a flat screen on their phone or computer or television screen. Good experience. What will be a better experience, I believe, is if they can put on a headset and feel like they're there. And so I think that's going to create the optimal viewing experience for our content that immerses people in it, rather than having them passively watch it on a computer screen with all kinds of distractions around them. So virtual reality worship experiences is what I believe will probably be the primary use, just like we've started live streaming our services, and the pandemic expedited a lot of people being able to do that. You can already use a 360 camera. You can already stream that on YouTube and on Facebook. And so the technology is already there, but there's not enough users yet with the headsets that make it worth the investment from a production standpoint. So I don't highly recommend doing it, but you might begin testing it a little bit, and maybe you're preparing if you're already streaming your services, renting a 360 camera and testing it and being prepared for when that day comes that you might want to begin getting into 360, depending on your timing of whether you want to be an early adopter or kind of right when it begins to hit mass adoption. The second thing that I see churches doing and ministries doing when it comes to virtual reality is quiet time experiences or devotional experiences. One of the problems with devotionals on our phone is that we're going to get text messages in the middle of reading them. We're going to have other distractions where if we put in a headset, we can actually then go into maybe a walk through the Holy Land, or we could be walking down a stream or be immersed with kind of this 360 sound and audio. And so we can actually have a virtual quiet time, virtual devotional time where we read the Bible or we meditate or we do different things, but we do it in this immersive headset environment that I think is going to be so much more effective than just headphones listening to an audio devotional or a video devotional on a phone. And so I think a VR devotional experience is going to be a powerful use as people start creating these and people can use these. And so I would love to see churches start creating virtual reality devotional experiences ahead of virtual reality mass adoption, so that content is there as users begin to adopt it. Now, the third thing, probably the weirdest use, but I think it's going to actually become a more common use, and that's going to be small group environments where people use avatars to interact with each other. And that's the side of VR that I think people have a struggle with when it comes to the metaverse is, I don't want to interact with other cartoon characters or even function like a cartoon character, but when you get into these environments, they become a little bit more normal And these environments are actually making it look more like you and other people look like them. And so when you compare one of those environments versus a Zoom call, it's much more interactive. You can see more of their body language. You can see more of their facial expressions rather than just what they put on the screen in their little box on Zoom. You can actually look around the room as if you're in the same room. And you might be saying, I wish we were in the same room. Well, the reality is because geography or travel or putting kids down late at night, it's not as good as being in the same room, but it's the closest thing to it. And I think it's gonna be better than Zoom calls for people that do early adopt with that technology, and as it becomes more common and people become more used to it. We weren't always used to Zoom calls prior to the pandemic, and now it's becoming more common. So those are the three functions that I see churches primarily integrating into what they do with virtual reality into the future. And at this point, I think the only thing that's preventing us from progressing is adoption of the technology. So if you should get into this technology really depends on who you're trying to reach and how much they've adopted the technology. Mobile apps didn't necessarily make sense 15 years ago, but they sure do now that the adoption is so high with mobile phones. And so virtual reality integration will make more and more sense the more people adopt and begin using that technology. So that's when I think you should consider it. And I think it's a matter of when, not if, and how, and not, whether you do it or not. And so, yeah, I believe virtual reality is going to be a part of our future. And I think it's going to benefit what we do in very positive ways. We're intentional about innovating around this technology, but we can also waste our time and go too soon. We can also miss an opportunity and go too late. So pay attention to the technology. Be thinking about how this technology can be integrated into your ministry purposes and functionalities. Thanks so much for watching. I can't wait to talk to you again on the next video.